that you like were not the one that was given the invitation, like you know that invitation and welcome are different. And so in the case when like someone is invited to something but they're not truly welcome there, I use the term from Seinfeld. I know I'm not using it the same way they do, but invitation, right? Like that's an invitation. Like if somebody is like at the last minute like, oh, we reserved this space for you at our table, and it's like that night, you're like, I mean, you didn't really, but it's okay to just tell me that I'm a last minute invite. Like, I'm cool with that. But the fact that people feel like they have to hide that, it's like, it makes the difference between like truly an invitation and being welcome. So there's that. And I think about in schools and even sometimes in our clinics, right? You might invite someone to come in and tell, or sometimes they're forced. They're not really invited. They're like forced to come in. But once they step through the door, you have control over whether they feel welcome or not. In a sense, with those levers of design, right? You have some control in how that space is experienced by them. Yes, I have voluntold is another one, right? Like it's like, oh, I didn't really volunteer. You have voluntold. Okay, so you were invited, but like, are you actually participating, contributing? Like there's all these things. So so the next slide is kind of an adaptation. So you can see what the feeling is behind each of these levels. So if you look like somebody is present versus invited, those are different, right? You like walk into an event as opposed to like being invited to an event. They're different. And that is kind of, somebody says like choosing, right? I can choose when you're invited, you can choose to go or not. If you're just present and the thing is just like upon you, right? Oh, by the way, we're having this professional development at work. It's not optional, right? Like, oh, I guess I will be present, right? I was not invited. Like, you're invited to this mandatory training. Like, it's not really an invitation, but okay, right? So there's like those kind of the difference between truly like just being honest. Is it like your presence is required, or are you being invited to this thing? So that's like a subtle shift. And then the next one, like welcomed versus cared for. If you're welcomed in, that's one thing, right? Like, you know, the name badge is there, it has your thing on it, or there's a ritual in place to bring you into this space. But cared for is a different thing. How often do I find students in my classrooms that have elected to be there, right? They're walk-ins, they want to come into a college class, they want to come into a community college class, but the minute they come in, and I might welcome them, but do they feel cared for? Not if the content isn't like meeting them, not if I am not warm in my kind of greeting of them. And some people don't need that, like cared for element. And others, it's the difference between coming back and not coming back the second time, right? Like that idea of like you can be welcome into a space but not cared for is a subtle but important difference. And then in the next phase, there's that like supported and accepted. And so not only are they invited, and so they came, and then they were welcomed, and so they felt good about being there, but are they supported in the place to stay there? So there's a totally different element there. And then the next one is safety, right? Is it safe for them to be there? Do they feel like they can be themselves? Do they feel like they can voice an opinion? Do they feel like they can be exploratory in that space? And I look at it shouldn't be so far apart, but needed and loved is in fact like the last one of the last steps in this cycle. And so there are some people, and I know we know them, and we talk about that meaningful adult and meaningful engagement that can go straight to loved and needed with you from invitation, right? Like they just fly through all those levels of the dimensions of belonging. Like you meet someone even maybe for the first time, and they're like so inviting, so welcoming. They are so caring, and they're so genuine that you are already at that stage where you're like, wow, this could be a transformative experience for me. And others, they might spend their whole lives trying to get past choosing and investing, right? Like it's very transactional. You come in, you get the thing you need, or you're prescribed to do, and then you leave. Nothing is felt on a emotional level, on a spiritual level, on a cultural level, on a personal level. It's very surface level, very transactional. And so again, like thinking about what type of engagement do you want to have and how might you use those levers to design them is sort of the focus of this talk. And that seems very amorphous, I guess, maybe like vague. Like, what do you mean? Like, how do I design for belonging, right? Like you make it's the difference between rolling. I mean, I think design for innovation, people think rolling chairs and desks means that it's going to be innovative. That's not actually true. It just means that little kids are going to try to have races with the rolling chairs, and sometimes adults, right? So it's not like that the changing the furniture automatically changes the setting. But it can help. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce you to Uncle Pono Shim and some of his teachings of aloha that he received from his great aunt Pilahi Paki, before she passed, and how we use the practices of aloha that she gifted to Uncle Pono as our design criteria, actually, in all of our settings. Whether it be for executive leadership or for intergenerational learning programs with 8-month-old and 80 years old, like we use these elements to help us understand how we can get to transformative experiences with folks, or at least create the space that's rich for it. So you might see a version of this poster, the iconic orange and black poster with the white writing at the Kahului airport. That is, I thought that it was everywhere because it exists in that space. And I thought every airport must have this and every office building, because I also worked at the state capitol for a little while. So I was like, every place has this. That's actually not true. If you want a copy of this, we can send it to you. We have printed versions of this, but this poster was designed by someone and informed and inspired by Uncle Pono Shim and another Aloha practitioner and student of Aunty Pilahi, Ramsey Tom. So Uncle Ramsey and Uncle Pono are both students of Aunty Pilahi, and they both received. It's an interesting and traditional way of learning and teaching, and yet not traditional in the way that we think about it now. But they did not receive the same teachings. So in some traditions of practice, people actually receive different versions of particular teachings, because when you think about it, and we'll get into this in about 15 minutes, but that there is a unique universe that's created when a teacher or someone that is a knowledge bearer meets a knowledge receiver. That channel that is created between the two people, or any two people in relationship, is unique to the two of them. It's unique to their past experiences. It's unique to the place that they're engaging in. It's unique to even their inside weather that day, right? If I am storm system like crazy and I meet an amazing elder who's trying to like fill me with this knowledge, nothing is going to get in. I will have missed that opportunity. But if it's a day where me and my version of myself, I'm calm, I'm ready, I'm hungry for it, and I meet someone that is willing to share, like it's a different universe that's created than in that first case where someone's like, here's all these things that I'm trying to give to you. And I'm like, I don't have space for it right now. I cannot even hear you over the deafening roar of the thunderstorm that is my brain right now. So all those things create those unique experiences. So Uncle Pono received a unique version of Aunty Pilahi's teachings. So Aunty Pilahi in 1970, so in prior to 1970, she was teaching. She had students that were musicians and hula practitioners and lua practitioners and la'au lapa'au practice. Like she had students that came from all kinds of different cultural practices. She was sharing this deeper meaning of aloha with. And as she, in her practice, there are several of these teachers that use the method or the framework of unpacking containers of meaning in concepts. And so they look at sounds, how sounds interact, and how each of those carries its own spiritual and like amazing essence. And so she shared with the world publicly, finally in 1970. This is the first record of her like on film, or I guess camera and audio, that she shared with a conference that was at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, at the East West Center. That was the governor's conference on the year 2000. So in 1970, there is this meeting of all these delegates and leaders from all over Hawaii and the Pacific to talk about what's the fate of Hawaii that we're looking at in the next 30 years? What's this projection that we might have about, we see tourism, we see military, we see food security or insecurity, we see, language revitalization, perhaps. There's civil unrest on the continent that's making its way. There's all these things happening. And the Governor Burns at the time called for a conference on what do we want Hawaii to be like? What's our vision for Hawaii 2000? And Aunty Pilahi was amongst those that attended the conference, and in that moment shared for the first time in that recording, akahai, lokahi, olu olu, ha'aha'a, and ahonui as the wisdom of aloha that can be shared with the world and can actually guide our practices. And so, and when she gifted that to folks, she also said, and Uncle Pono and others began to call this Pilahi's prophecy, that the world will turn to Hawaii as they search for world peace because Hawaii has the key, and that key is aloha. And so, again, it's like, what does that mean? What does that mean in practice? What does that mean in action? How do we like actually do it? Like, it's not like are we carrying aloha? Is it something that we have to grow, right? Like, how do we keep it? I mean, there are some days where I'm like, it is definitely present. Other days where I'm like, I think maybe we need a refresher course on what aloha is and what it means to be in it. I don't think that it's aloha poke or aloha garbage or aloha termite control. I mean, those things could be definitely run with aloha, but I think this video with Uncle Pono will share with us a little bit of like what it would mean to be conducting ourselves with aloha. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my sound, and we'll bring Anakala into the room. He passed about 2 years ago. Um, and yeah, but every presentation is his presentation, so this is his.
And she said, I am going to share with you the deeper meanings of what it means to live in this place and who we are. And I just want you to practice. And so she started to share, amongst other things, this deeper meaning of aloha that I never heard from her, nor heard from her after. It was just this one time. And it wasn't what I heard her sharing with everyone else. She explained to me that almost all Hawaiian words have three interpretations. There is a literal translation, known as the ho'opukaku. And mahalo means thank you. That there's this literal interpretation of it. Thank you, mahalo. Simple. Then there's the kauna, which is that poetic essence of our language, the beauty of the poetry of our language, and the metaphors of our language. And that's the second. And then she said, and then there's a third. And the third is known as the noahuna. It's a spiritual, esoteric meaning of our words. And she said, the first two were taught, but the third was not taught, it's passed. And it's passed to the learned ones known as the kahuna. And she said, I am going to share with you the deeper meanings of the words that make up the essence of who we are, and I want you to practice living them. So, when she shared aloha with others, and she began with akahai, with me she began with ahonui, the last A. And the reason why she said she's beginning with ahonui is because she was beginning with the ha. The ha of aloha. Because she said the ha is the essence of who we are. And for us, it begins with our center, our ha, our breath. It always begins there. So she says, you go back to the ha. She even related it to other cultures or heritage. She said the Japanese, it's ki, ki-ai. Chinese, they call it chi, the chi energy. For us, we call it ha, because it's the essence of our breath. It begins there. So she begins with the ah of the ha, the ahonui. And the literal translation of ahonui is perseverance. Persistence is its essence. And she tells me, I'm sorry, patience and perseverance. And she tells me that ahonui means waiting for the moment. And she said, you are ahonui, direct. You are ahonui. You are waiting for the moment because the moment is coming. And it may not come in your lifetime. But you are always prepared and preparing others for the moment. You are ahonui. Now notice she expands it from just my segment of life to before and after me. That ahonui is, I'm waiting for the moment, but that moment has implications much beyond me. So she's expanding me that it may not come in my time, but I am always waiting and prepared for the moment that could not possibly come in my time. So it takes us beyond generations. And if you think about patience, and what is the image of someone who's being patient? The image of someone who's being patient is almost like boredom, you know. It's like, I'm being patient. And what's the image of ahonui that she gave me, waiting for the moment? Present, alert, waiting, anticipating. Very different than what I see most people interpret as ahonui, the literal translation. And she said, an eagle, a hawk, a shark are never patient. They're always waiting for the moment. She said, you are ahonui. Then she jumps to ha'aha'a. And ha'aha'a, most people know as humility. That's what she shares. And she says, ha'aha'a means to be empty. To go to emptiness, to become nothing. To go to emptiness, to go to zero. She said, only when you're empty can you receive. Ha'aha'a means empty. And so you need to find emptiness. And then what she does is she puts the ha'aha'a, and the ahonui together, the ha, and she ha's me. And she says the moment of emptiness. That when you ha, you go to a moment of emptiness. And she went to that moment of emptiness, and then after she hits that moment of emptiness, she inhales, and now she's fulfilled again. And she says, ha'aha'a ahonui is the moment of emptiness. And everything begins there. All connection, so now she's telling me that it's all about connection. All connection is preceded by a moment of emptiness. So if you want to connect with someone or something, what you need to do is find the moment of emptiness. You must ha. And find it. Then what she does is she jumps to akahai. Akahai, people know as kindness. I know akahai as grace. She said, akahai is with white gloves, grace. You are akahai. That when you engage with people, you engage so that it's very clean. That when you leave them clean. It's stainless. You don't leave your dust. You don't leave your stain on them. That's what grace is. You leave them clean. That's akahai. Then she jumped to olu olu. So she's all over the map with me. Olu olu, why olu olu? She said, because like akahai, olu olu is how you engage with somebody. And she said, olu olu, normally the pleasantness, but she said it's gentle. And the image she gave me is like you're touching a baby, gentle like you're carrying a baby. You're not here to bruise or scar a baby. People understand the gentleness of aloha. What they mistake is the opposite side. The Chinese or Japanese, in the Buddhist faith, the yin and the yang. What is that opposite of gentleness? And it's the strength. So the gentleness enough to carry the baby, but the strength to never ever drop baby. And it's the strength to hold this baby without injuring this baby. That's the side that people don't understand about our values, how strong they are. So now you have what's remaining is lokahi. And she finishes lokahi by saying lokahi doesn't mean unity. And how she deconstructs it for me is she asked me, what is unity? And I'm simple-minded. I think unity is making everybody together. She said, yes, making everyone one. She said, what is one? And she proceeded to teach me. E kahi, kahi, lokahi, kahi, one. And then to make everybody one is ho'o, ho'okahi. She said, that's unity. And she said, the problem's not Hawaiian, the problem is English. Everybody's using a word, they don't understand what it means. That's ho'okahi, making everybody one. And what's the method? She said, we argue, we debate, we reason. She said, that's not lokahi. Lokahi, alokahi. Alo, in the presence of, in the face of, kahi. And then she drops the A and she said, lokahi. Alokahi, lokahi. She said, lokahi means unbroken, connected, whole, already whole. She said, we all enter this universe lokahi, connected. But our economic, political, education, religious, geographic systems, everything teaches us that we're broken. And we spend all of our time trying to ho'okahi everybody with ourselves. And she said, not going to happen. She proceeded to tell me that I'm going to be a storyteller, and that when I tell my stories, it is to tell them in a way that comes up into people and they experience lokahi. They experience the connection. Not me trying to ho'okahi them with me. But it comes up, we're one.
Okay, so that's Uncle Pono. And I wanted to just share that. So when we think about aloha, he gave us those practical sort of, the images, yeah, like akahai, or he starts with ahonui, waiting for the moment. Um, and then goes to ha'aha, empty. And so you empty so you can fill, right? You pause, empty, and fill. And what you do then is act with grace and balance in akahai and olu olu. And it's to achieve lokahi, which is sort of his practical steps that he prescribed. Achieving lokahi is the goal. What we do with akahai and olu olu is how we treat people, and ha'aha'a and ahonui is the way we prepare ourselves. So it's this really interesting, like every day you can question yourself and ask at the end of the day, like, was I ahonui today? Was I akahai? Like, was I olu olu? And if at the end of the day you weren't, Anakala would say, like, find the one that you are practicing and you're find your way to all. And so if one seems really difficult, I have a hard time with lokahi, especially with people that I don't get along with. And so I have a hard time seeing the oneness in things. I have a hard time seeing the connection that we might share with someone that I feel is so opposite from me. And then I lean into it and realize, like, our connection is that. It's the oppositeness. And it helps me in my balance and understanding others' point of view, grows my empathy. And also in akahai, I have to forgive myself for not always leaning into the aloha response as much as I think I should. But I bring to you sort of this is Aunty Pilahi. So Aunty Pilahi, in her book Legends of Hawaii, Oahu's Yesterday, in the introduction, she actually shares a different meaning of aloha. So we've heard aloha, which is Nana Viri used that as well to talk about aloha. We've heard Uncle Pono share that Aunty Pilahi taught akahai, lokahi, olu olu, ha'aha, and ahonui, which we see on t-shirts and posters and all those things, keychains, that she gave that to the world. What she gave to him was something a little bit different. Ahonui ha'aha'a, and then olu olu akahai, and then lokahi, right? But we bring it all together again. And this is that magical interplay between the ho'opukaku, or the literal, the kauna and the symbolic, the noahuna and the spiritual. It's all it's always cycling and always actually connected all at the same time, one driving the other. The minute you feel yourself at the surface, you can push yourself back down to beneath the surface and get into the spiritual part of it. And when that feels heavy or too deep, go back up to, like, love is aloha, and compassion is aloha, right? The things that I already know really well. So Auntie Pilahi gives us this other definition, which I think is so beautiful. And it's aloha, as translated and interpreted by my ancestors, was an element of life. Okay, so it's like sun, water, air, right? Aloha is an element. It was an element vital and important to their daily habits in life. Aloha for them was the spiritual essence endowed to man in his and her beginning. Aloha is that tiny glow or spark to and in life which enabled man to imply his thoughts and apply his heart to the imagination and emotion of his and her soul. So in this particular conceptualization of aloha, it is the divine spark that powers your being. It's your light. And all of those aloha practices that she shared with the world, that she shared with Uncle Pono, that she shared with her students, were about growing your light without sacrificing the light of anyone else. And what happens when your light meets their light? Or what happens when you meet someone who the world and society, as Uncle Pono said, has tried so much to correct that their light is dangerously close to going out? How do you feed your light and the light of someone else who may not have ever felt welcomed and belonged? And so just going through that part and thinking about when we meet someone, we carry all of these lands. And by lands, I don't just mean the physical lands. I mean, I always tell people in your pico, like in your belly button, when you like say like, oh, my gut tells me this, or like I have a gut reaction to something, I'm like, that's good. That's like 1,000 mothers that live in your umbilical cord. Because it connected you to your mom and to their mom, and like that is 1,000 moms screaming at you. Like that's your gut reaction. And so like they're all trying to tell you like this is the right way. This is what's pono, right? Or hey, maybe you should be cautious about that. And so you carry all of that in you. You carry every mother in your existence. You also carry every land that they were born to. You carry every continent probably in existence because you carry everything that was breathed upon and everything that went into every person. You carry all that genealogy in you. You carry the land of your ancestors. And all of those lands then meet the lands of everyone else when you are in space with them, right? Sometimes two people in a room, the room feels like it's not big enough. And it's like you're just two people, but it's because you're bringing the whole world with you, right? And we have to make space for all those worlds. And then not just the lands you bring with you and the lands that you're born in, but there's also the land you create. So just like how this iconic picture from when I worked at Hokule of like Hokulea sailing up to Hawaii Island when the volcano is active and creating new lands, right? We're watching land being created. I'm like, that happens every day with a person that you're working with a person that you meet. You are creating new destinies and new destinations for them. And so, what do we want to design that to be like? And so, that's sort of this how do we design for belonging? I mean, it is ancestral and it's contemporary and it's intuitive and it's aloha. And so those are sort of some of the things that I wanted to bring to you. And this drawing right here is an illustration that's made by my friend Tom Penna of Pono. And I love this one because, you know, when people say like, you're not the center of the universe, or who do you think you are? Like, you think you're the center of the universe? Like, you are though. You're the center of the universe. Like, it emanates from your people, and you are the middle of all your lived experiences and all the generations and everything around you. And you carry that universe. No one else has that but you. No one. So you are the center of your very own universe. And when you meet someone else, when you're in space with them, their universe comes too. And they are, in fact, the center of their own universe as well. And so when we can't see eye to eye, we can't, like, find that sense of security or whatever it is. I think in part it's where do our universes overlap? Where might we have intersected in any kind of way? And let's find that point of connection so that we can build our relationships, we can build our aloha for each other and for the work that we're trying to do. So I'm actually gonna move past that, and I want to just invite because I've been talking for a long time. Um, I wanted to end. We started with the radical introduction from Wayfinder, and this is a closing ritual that we have at Wayfinder as well. Um, that is called head, heart, and feet. And so when we reflect in the space, we think about in our head, like what are we thinking, right? Any thoughts that you might be having about the content, about what it means to honor your own universe and the universe of others, about what belonging means to you, about any of the dimensions and levers of anything that we talked about. Uncle Pono's Aloha practice. And then the heart is what you're feeling, which is important for us to know that they are different. Our head thinks things, our heart feels things, or and they might be related, but they are different. And then the feet prompt is, what will you take with you? What's something that you like, starting today, this practice is my thing, or something that I can take with me into the next version of what I'm doing. Um, and so I wanted to just give us a few, maybe a minute to think about a head, heart, and feet. And then if anybody, after that minute, I'll invite you to either share in the chat or unmute and just share what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you think you might take with you on your journey. So I'll mute myself for a minute and give us that time. I wish we had more time. I always run up right against the clock, but trying to manage that. So I'll be quiet for a minute and then we'll open up for comments. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the sharing and I'll repeat the prompts. We're thinking about head, heart, and feet, something that you're thinking about or that has like, is dwelling in that realm, something that you're feeling. And then the feet is like something that you might just take with you into practice tomorrow. Um, yeah, so anybody who wants to put one or all three in the chat, please feel welcome to also unmute and share if you would like to. We do have a few minutes for that.
I like to share.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brain's been kind of going all around in circles. It's really cool, and I love how it all came together with the head, heart, and feet. So I'll start with, I came here because sometimes I'm like, oh, this topic is perfect for me because I don't know where I belong. I've lived here for 25 years. But being Haole, I feel, not being Native Hawaiian, that I don't belong. And, I'm part of that. And, maybe it's my ancestors that are causing some of the historical trauma and problems. But then I go back to California and I don't feel like I belong there either because I haven't been there in a very long time. Yeah, I'm just feeling, I love all of it today. My heart is feeling full. And I think the one thing that's really sticking with me is that last picture of the universe. And in that we are not in an egotistical sense, but we are each unique, just like every fingerprint. And we're all part of our historical ancestors and part of our future. And I just think that's what I'm going to carry forward with my feet, is just when I meet someone, because we can, especially with the travel and migration, um, you don't know who you're going to meet. And I think that's like part of what's always made me feel then welcome in a group, is they're not looking at me and assuming that they know who I am. They're willing to ask questions. And I try to do the same. Sometimes I'm not always good at it. But just a really funny, then I'll pass it on, is I met this woman in Canada where we go ski every year. We met house swapping, oddly enough. We became friends. And now I'm 99% sure that we're related, because she was raised Mennonite, I was raised by Mennonites. And our ancestral paths to come for her to Canada and to me, the United States, was the same. And it's just, and again, as if we just leave ourselves open to learn about the other people, then not only do we discover how they belong in our world, but how we belong in their world. And I just think that's pretty cool. So thank you.
Thank you. Would someone else like to share? We do have a few minutes. Anyone would
I'm
like to?
happy to share.
Thank you, Ani.
Hi, good morning. My name is Anaya.
Anaya, sorry.
Oh, no
Thank you.
worries. I'm used to it. Just remember papaya. That's what I tell students.
Oh,
So I sat with this actually, I'll start with one, right? Which is that for me, this was a very spur of the moment, even being in the conference, let alone choosing. I was having to decide where I was going to go very last minute. And that's because I was in the schools. I work at EL Middle School doing peer mediation training. So we just had a 2-day intensive. And I chose this because I thought, wow, I feel like I have some of these. This is great for me. I'm going to take it, right? And I two things. I'm glad I chose it. I'm glad let's talk about being present with the right thing. And it really affirmed for me actually that I am incorporating some of these belonging feeling things. Partly yeah, just really that I'm like, great, okay, I'm on a good path for myself. This feels like I am developing my program to really hold these concepts. The second one, which was I think the feelings, was that I feel really grateful. Wow, it actually made me tear up a bit. I'm not gonna lie. It really was moving. It was a beautiful gift. These teachings were really different and succinct in the sense that I lived in northern New Mexico and there was a very local community. We were the minorities being white people. And so being here, I'm adjusting to the different cultures. I have a lot of experience with a culture that's very rooted and has the family and the land, and that is really big there as well. So these teachings just really kind of exemplified for me being here on Maui, this beautiful part that I'm aware of, but it was really just a deep teaching, and that what I'm going to move forward in my journey is actually to not only deepen my understanding of this particular, which I would call heart driven, a way of being heart driven as you work with people, but youth particularly for me, and that it actually is going to push me to. I don't have a lot of time, but I really would like to find a mentor. So this is I feel like I'm in an amazing group to maybe find one. So anybody out there that might be interested, I would really enjoy being able to take more of the appropriate culture that's here and incorporate it into my programs. I do the best I can with words that I feel I understand, but it's a language that I'm unfamiliar with and a culture that I'm still learning a lot about. So would be so happy if anybody's interested. I work in the public schools. We run 4 programs. I work with a nonprofit. So, and thank you again. And I apologize. I actually have to go. I'm taking my mother to an appointment. She lives with me. She had a stroke 2 years ago. So yeah, I just thank you so much. What a really miracle I got to show up here. It really impacts for me because I'm directly working with the community and the kids. This was again affirming and so much to take away. I really appreciated it. So thank you for your time and
And
all your yeah.
I dropped into the chat for everybody. Sorry, the updated slide deck. I know Marlena added it before, but I forgot the last 2 slides, which actually are an invitation to our next Foundations of Aloha cohort practice. We've been running this for almost 4 years maybe. It started with Uncle Pono before he passed, and it's free, open. We bring him in by video, and then every day we have a different element that we focus on for each cohort. And the other one was a resource library that is at his former, he was the CEO of Oahu Economic Development Board. They have a video library of his teachings. And I always tell people, go meet Uncle Pono, go watch his videos. Like he's still there through all of that. Yeah, and I know we're at time, and I would love to, I don't know, maybe Marlena, do we have like another minute? Or I know people have to go and I don't want to keep you. And so I just love being here with all of you. And I'm like crying again, but that's always
The next session starts at 11:15. So maybe wrap up in the next 1 or 2 minutes so that the next person hosting, I don't know if this room is, I don't think this room is shared with
okay.
anyone. But yeah, just for everyone, if you're attending or presenting for a second session, that's starting at 11:15.
Okay,
So
awesome.
the space can
Um,
be open for a
yeah,
couple more
thank
minutes.
you. If anybody else would like to share, yes, I see you under Kaehu. Um,
Oh, yes. Hi, aloha, keola mau tengan. I just logged in and I just wanted to say how glad I am to be able to catch the tail end of this. When I was living, I'm on Maui right now, and Kaehu is a local nonprofit that does land stewardship stuff and whatnot. And so Uncle Pono was one of my mentors when I was living on Oahu. And since I've transitioned back to Maui, we attempted to do a cohort here when I first moved back, and we had a small group of us. Yet I just wanted to say how much, the practices of aloha as a lifestyle, as a discipline, as a way of being continues to support me in my life now. So mahalo for hosting this, and I, especially after this morning, was really very much reliant upon those same practices, and being able to show up here is a blessing. So mahalo.
Thank you so much. I've been to Kaehu. Uncle Dookie, is he still working there?
Oh
Or
yeah. He lives right in the neighborhood, so we're
okay,
still doing things together. Yeah.
so yeah, I grew up in well, partially in Waiahu.
Oh, okay. Right on. Me too.
Anyone else wanna share before we kind of close out? I'm just so grateful that you all were here for this morning session. Yeah, and for allowing me to share Uncle Pono with you and my friend Susie's Design for Belonging framework, and really thinking about how to make meaning with others in our spaces.
Where can we get a copy of Susie's Design for Belonging?
So you could actually look up Design for Belonging. Maybe I can add that into as a post, like as part of the conference thing, but you can order the book through the D School, I think. I think it's available there. I know Susie sent me a copy, but I think you can buy it there. And then the slide decks are actually available for anybody to download. There's parts about what Design for Belonging means and can we design for belonging. She worked on that while she was at the National Equity Project. But I think they're still linked to the D School website. So that
Okay,
should be available there. Yeah. And
thank you.
just let me know if you have any questions for her. I'm supposed to hang out with her like next month to just update her on the like 80 presentations that I've given about design for belonging. She was like, you promote it more than I do. I was like, because it's genius. I love it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. And yes, Marlena, you're right. We're gonna be in this space at 1:15. For those of you that are planning to join that one, you will hear Uncle Pono's video again because we will bring it in there, but it's different. We're gonna actually dive deep into each of the practices, akahai, lokahi, olu olu, ha'aha, and ahunui, and think about what those look like in your own life and who kind of symbolizes that for you in your lived experiences. So we'll dive deeper into your own personal practices of aloha to build your own sort of toolkit or memory book of that. So that's what we'll be doing this afternoon.